Joe, welcome. Thanks very much for being here with us today. So we're joined by Joanna Taylor. Joe, I guess we met quite a while ago now, didn't we? When we
before all this happened.
Yeah, and we've been threatening getting together for a podcast for quite a while now, but unfortunately, due to the pandemic, it's not been very easy to get us both in the same room to record it, has it really? But we won't let that stop us. Technology and all that ushering us into the brave new world. But I guess when we met up, we got discussing the paradigm of women in technology quite a bit. And I know that's something that's quite close to your heart, and you've got quite a particular perspective on. And I guess it'd be quite useful to have a chat with you around that today, if you would be so keen. You are a developer now, a software developer at Sky, and I guess you're someone who kind of entered into the tech scene after a change in career, because you kind of were doing a previous career prior to that. So I guess what would be quite interesting to hear from your perspective in the first instance is kind of what attracted you to the world of technology and a career in technology, and why did you decide to switch paths and come over to the dark side?
Okay. Well, so, I mean, I've had a few different careers. So I was a journalist for many years, print journalist, and then I became a personal trainer for 5 years and ran my own business doing that. And that was something I was really passionate about, really loved. But then I developed an injury and I needed to have an operation, and I just felt like I couldn't do that role anymore. And I was really looking for the next step. What can I do next? And I'd actually, my husband works in technology, and he actually worked for Sky at the time. He works for a startup now, but I was going to a lot of technology conferences with him, like Cisco Live and things, looking around the room and going, there's no women here. There's literally no women. The only women there were sort of PR girls and things. And I was, why is this? This is really strange. And I sort of thought back to my own experiences at school, and, I always loved technology. My dad was really into his computers, and we always had the latest tech, and we had the internet before anyone else. And, it was kind of, I was always really passionate about it, but I'd never considered a career in that kind of field. And I thought, why is that? That's really strange. So I had some conversations with some guys there, and they were like, oh, women don't want to do this job. And I said, well, is that true though? I'm not sure it is. So, that kind of got me thinking, and I was really, I thought, God, this has got to change. And I thought, well, how do you change it? Well, you've got to kind of get involved. You've got to be the change that you want to see. So, and then just serendipitously, I found this magazine, and I saw that Sky were doing this Get Into Tech scheme for women. So they teach women how to code, and then with the you don't have to take a job, or you don't have to apply for a job at the end of it, but they encourage you to. Whether it's with Sky or someone else. And so I applied for a job at Sky after I did the scheme, and then I've been there ever since. So, yeah, the Get Into Tech scheme was brilliant because it really gave you an insight into what working with coding is like. It trains you in all these different aspects, lots of different areas of technology as well. So, yeah, that's kind of...
Yeah, that's great. I think it is great when companies are proactive like that and have those kind of initiatives and those kind of strategies, because obviously they are, a helping hand for anybody to get into technology. But I guess then, it's clearly a big hot topic for a lot of companies still. When I'm speaking to clients, it is something that's very much at the forefront of their mind about the kind of diversity of the team and the kind of proportional representation within the team. So how do you feel that despite companies, I think, actively and proactively trying to do something to even up the balance over the last few years, how do you feel things have changed over the last few years, or if indeed they have, and what do you feel the landscape is looking like for women in tech today?
I think it's getting better, and I do think that these initiatives help, but at the same time, that they can hinder as well, because some people feel that you've been given an unfair advantage. You're only here because you're a woman, not necessarily because you actually know what you're doing, which, can be difficult to overcome. There's still those biases. The teams are still very male dominated. So getting your voice heard is sometimes difficult. I'm really lucky because I'm in a sort of 50-50 team, and it is getting better. And, Sky is definitely leading that change. That we are getting a lot more women into technology, a lot more women into leadership. So things are changing, but it has to start earlier. It has to start at schools. You know, girls need to be choosing STEM subjects at school. They need to be going into these things, and it's still not happening. You know, even in this day and age, it's still not starting, you know, in the schools, which,
yeah,
I mean, it's okay changing career, you know, halfway through, and that's great, and that's been really good for me. And, you know, obviously you have transferable skills, but really people need to be going into these jobs from the beginning. I mean, I certainly wish I had.
Yeah, it's a really good point actually, because I think a lot of people often we kind of aim the lens of blame at the you know, the commercial world and workforces and selection processes today, but you know, does the issue like a more kind of fundamental level within education? And you know, there is this kind of argument, I guess, that I've heard in the past that you know, rightly or wrongly, people have said that you know, women don't necessarily gravitate towards those kind of STEM subjects as much as men. You know, so is there something more that could be done in schools, you know, to kind of even up that balance? But, you know, from your perspective, do you feel that's fair? What do you think about the kind of education? And is there a bias there at the moment in sort of schools and the education system?
I think there is. I mean, I think it's still that case of, you know, boys play with trucks and girls play with dolls, and, you know, that doesn't happen until kids go to school. You know, when kids are still at home, that they'll just pick up whatever toy there is. You know, they don't really think about it. But as soon as they found that as soon as they go to school, say at 3 or 4, suddenly they're like, oh no, that's a boy's toy or that's a girl's toy, and that's still happening, which is really strange. Because to me, it's like, I feel like that's kind of like from the dark ages, you know, from when I was at school. But it's still happening. And we went into schools as Sky. We went into a school to teach 12-year-olds how to code, and the girls were still a bit like, oh, you know, this is a bit, you know, this is weird. And so we actually taught them about, you know, this is how many women drop off from STEM subjects, and they were quite shocked, you know, and I was sort of standing there going, you know, look, I'm doing it, it's a great job, you know, it pays really well. And they were like, oh, you know, I hadn't really considered it. And they were looking at me thinking, oh, you're not the sort of typical person that we expect that works in technology, because I think there's still that kind of idea of that hacker in the basement, you know, with the hoodie and things, and girls don't really want to be that, you know, or some do, but
yeah,
you know, a lot of the girls want to do more sort of creative jobs, and technology can be incredibly creative, but they just don't see that side of things. So once we got them doing some coding and you know, creating some, so we had this maze that they had to create in Scratch, and they had to create their own little characters, and then, you know, do, you know, you could create anything you wanted, so the character could change, it could go different directions, and some of the stuff they came up with was so amazing, but they couldn't. They didn't even see that as coding then. They just thought, oh, you know, it's just a bit of fun on the computer. It's just me being creative. And it's kind of tying those things together and saying, no, this is actually something you could do as a job, and you can be really creative with it. So it's not just maths. It's not just, you know, doing scientific stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a really interesting point actually. And yeah, it's when you're speaking there, it's just sort of thinking about, it is an interesting perspective of when does that bias start, and where does it come from? Is it, you know, innate within the person, or is it an external influence? And you know, as a father of 2 girls myself, I'm quite overly conscious, I think, of not imparting any kind of external bias, you know, from my perspective onto them in terms of the thing, you know, like I say, the toys that they want to play with, or, you know, the kind of choices that they make. I'm kind of very much led by the stuff that they like to do. Yeah, and there will be times that Heidi, who's my eldest, she'll want to play with a dolly over a car, for instance. But there's other times that she enjoys counting. You know, I think she is kind of a more numerate kind of child than necessarily create. I don't know where she's got that from. It's not from me. But you know, I think she is kind of more numerate than creative, and creative in kind of the artistic sense necessarily. And yeah, it's kind of, like I say, just trying to encourage people to do things they're interested in and not sort of put any of these set in stone rules in place. I think it is really important at a very young age, isn't it? And I think the educational system, it does have a lot to answer for from that regard, absolutely. Because I've exactly the same experiences when I was at school. You know, I did IT, GCSE, and I don't think there was a single girl in the class. You know, and there must be something in that, absolutely. So yeah, but okay. So I mean, from that perspective, in terms of the bias element of things, in your experience, I mean, it sounds like Sky's got a great proportional representation of men and women, which is great. But have you been exposed to any kind of biases in terms of the way you're treated as a woman in technology from, you know, maybe a peer level or a management level, you know, good, bad or indifferent? Do you feel you've been exposed to any kind of, you know, different type of treatment as a female in technology?
Not me personally, but I know of other friends that work in Sky as well, or that work in other companies, that have said things like, someone said to them, "Oh, you're really good for a female engineer," something, you know, and it's like, why do you have to say the female bit? You know, you're just a good engineer, you know. Or there was, so I did this Get Into Tech scheme, and I was lucky because I was placed in 2 really good teams, and you know, there was absolutely no issues. Everyone just treated me like a full member of the team, and that was great. But other people have had issues where the team has just been like, "Oh, you know, you're one of those Get Into Tech people. You know, we don't really think much of you." And I've actually heard of one girl who, she really wanted to join a team, and she really studied the technology that they use, and she was really into it, and she was really excited to join that team. And they said, "Oh, we've had your kind before, and we don't want you." So it's things like that you know, you still need to tackle. It's worrying that that's still happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
But she was like, "Look, bring it on. I want to do it. Let me prove myself. I'm not whoever you've had before."
Yeah.
You know, and they wouldn't give her a chance. And I think that's really, really concerning.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's, I suppose you get, you know, people like that in all walks of life, don't you, irrespective of whether you're a man or a woman. And you know, sometimes you've got to look at it through a relatively impartial lens of, do you just get people in the world of work that are just pretty ignorant and tolerant to most people, irrespective of that? And I think it's good if you can adopt that kind of mindset of, well, look, I'm going to show you, rather than sort of play the victim. Absolutely. Yeah.
I do think that unfortunately it has been encouraged to kind of be like, for the industry to be like that at the moment, just because it has been so male dominated, that now women are trying to get in there, that the men are sort of closing ranks a little bit sometimes, and not all of them, but there's definitely some that do feel threatened by this, and it's a shame, because actually diversity always brings a lot of benefits to the team.
Yeah, absolutely. That's always a question I'm always really interested in the answer to, and ask clients, you know, kind of, you know, is there a particular kind of personality profile or type of person that you find there's sort of a common thread of characteristics that fits well within the team? And you know, it's more just really trying to understand what their perspective is on diversity, because there's certain businesses that see it as a you know, they really do try and look for people that have a real kind of template of, you know, this is the kind of person we look for, this is the personality profile we look for, whereas there's other businesses that say, you know, the diversity element is what makes us a great team. You know, the fact that everybody has a different personality, a different backgrounds, come from a different walk of life. You know, that's the kind of rich tapestry we're kind of looking to create, rather than kind of replicate the same person over and over again. So, you know, and diversity, it is, without a shadow of a doubt now, it's kind of one of those buzzwords that everybody kind of, I suppose, utilizes in some way, shape or form, you know, about to talk about their business. But where do you, and what does diversity mean to you, you know, in this day and age?
So I think that it's having lots of people from different walks of life, different ethnic backgrounds, different genders. Everyone has something different to offer. You know, everyone has a different story. Everyone has different thoughts and ideas, and it's really good when you challenge that. And again, I guess it depends who your customers are. So if your customers are all women in their 30s, then yeah, by all means, have a team that's all women in their 30s, because they understand that market. But if you're someone like Sky, you're selling to all different types of people. So why not have those people represented in the room to maybe bring up things that you haven't thought of? You know, you might think, I think there's, you get sort of application forms, and it's sort of like, you know, Miss or Mrs. or whatever. And, you know, a guy, Mr., Miss or Mrs. or whatever. And a guy might not pick up on that could be offensive to someone, or, you know, whereas someone else might. Or if you get someone maybe who's trans, you know, they might say, well, actually, you know, where do I fit in there? So it is good to have those different voices in the room.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting perspective to think about building a business culture based around the reflection of your customer base, actually, isn't it? Because I don't think many companies necessarily do consider that. I think they kind of think, well, this is our internal culture. This is what fits well for us, but they don't really ever think about the people they're serving necessarily. Is there a good match there?
You look at mobile apps. You know, it's customer base is 60% women, and yet they're being built by 90% men. And, you know, so why not have those people in the room that actually use things and allow them to be part of the building process?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally. Okay, so I mean, I think we're agreed. You know, definitely is an area that thankfully a lot of businesses are looking to address. You know, and they do have, you know, some great sort of initiatives around this to try and even up the balance as best as possible in the fairest way as possible. But, you know, from your experience, what do you feel businesses could, you know, for anybody that's out there at the moment, they have absolutely no problem with employing women, and they would indeed like to attract more women to themselves as a business. What do you think businesses could do to attract more women into their tech teams?
So I think it's how you word your job adverts. You know, you have to think about, are you putting unconscious biases in there? Are you putting, you know, sort of male terms? Or, I mean, I was asked about an advert that was just very, very technical, and actually the role wasn't that technical, and you know, anyone could do it. But they said to me, "Would you be put off by this?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely. I would think, no, I don't have any of those skills." And yet they were like, "But you could do that job." So you have to think about how you write those adverts. You also have to think about, you know, sometimes having too many criteria, because women will try to match every single criteria on a job advert. And whereas men will go, oh, I've got 50% of that. Yeah, I'll go for it. You know, that'll be fine. And most companies don't expect you to fulfill all those criteria. But unfortunately, women are still, we're finding, are still wanting to have at least 90% of those before they'll even think of applying for a job. So you need to get them applying if you even want to get them through the door. And there's other things that, you know, technology is actually really, really flexible in how it works. And, you know, we can work with flexible hours, we can work from home, different things, but that's not really promoted. And you should be promoting that to women who maybe have kids or, you know, different lifestyles that they want to, that flexible hours would work really, really well for them, or working from home. And knowing that those jobs are out there, you know, I don't think many women are aware that that's actually something that would really benefit them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we you know, we do often speak to some clients that say, you know, well, we don't offer any kind of part-time work, and it's got to be in the office full time. And it's like, well, you know, people have lives outside of work. It doesn't mean they can't necessarily deliver any better or any less than someone that's in the office. And I think this whole, you know, unfortunate situation that we find ourselves in many ways, I think it is going to fundamentally change the landscape of, you know, I think the world is going to be a very different place on the other side of this as to how we work, and, you know, where we work from and the hours that we work as well. Because, you know, I think the kind of theory of you need to be in an office working from this day to this day and this time to this time is going to be fundamentally disproven in this world. Because, you know, I'm speaking to clients now that are thankfully experiencing massive spikes in productivity, because, you know, there people are at home, there's less distraction. They're cracking on and getting a really good day's worth of work done. You know, and there's less kind of meetings in the day of, you know, the kind of meetings that could be done by email. You know, there's less of those because everybody's got sort of specific times they need to do these types of chats. And, you know, thankfully this kind of technology, it really does enable you, it really does question, you know, what's the value in having everybody in in the same office all the time. So hopefully that's something that the businesses might reconsider moving forward in light of the the unfortunate pandemic situation.
Yeah, I mean, this pandemic has proven that you can do things from home. I mean, we've taken everything, and yeah, there's negative bits to it, because I do miss seeing the people that I work with, and things like pair programming is not that easy to do now. But yeah, it's kind of made me go off and do a lot more stuff on my own, which I've learned a lot from as well. And actually, I've thought now going forward, I probably would do 2 days a week working from home, because I have a really long commute and it's quite knackering. And actually, I've shown now that actually working from home is absolutely fine as long as you have a good setup and everything. It's easy to do. But we have a Sky Scholars scheme where we give women who have like a technology business or a technology idea. We give them funding. I think it's 25,000 to set up their business, and then we give them mentorship and help them. And one of the women who we had this year, she created this watch, which is for kids. So it's like a smart watch for kids, so that if you lose your child, you can find them and so on. And it was based on experience she had, I think, when she lost her child in a park or something. And anyway, she's created this watch, and I think it's now they're coming up with lots of other ideas for the use of this thing. But she employs only women, I think they're all mostly mothers, who all work from home, all work remotely, all around the world. And she says, you know what, she gets the most productivity out of them, because she said to them, I don't care when you work, I don't care when you fit it around your kids, do whatever. I just care that you do the job, right?
Yeah.
And so she says they work harder than they would if they were in an office, because they work the hours that they can do, and whether it's when the kids are in bed or whether it's the middle of the day when the kids are at school, or but they can nip out and they can do their normal life around it, but they're still really productive.
Totally agree. Yeah, I think a hybrid model is kind of where I believe the sweet spot will lie off the back of this, like you said, because I think people do miss the human contact and sort of the collaboration elements, especially like say within pair programming. Of course, that makes it so much easier if you're technically in the same room as someone. But yeah, I think that kind of hybrid model of moving forward, not necessarily needing to be in the office 5 days a week, I hope will prevail, because yeah, I totally agree with you in what you've just said there. I mean, that sounds like that's kind of that model you mentioned is quite an extreme of everybody works from home, everybody works remotely on a time schedule to suit them, which is great if it works for them. But I think fundamentally people will deliver if you get the right people on board and they're bought into the mission. People will deliver if they're trusted. They feel like they're trusted. People will want to go the extra mile to do the work. I think it's businesses where they have the ethos of the mandate of, well, no one can work from home, because if they work from home, they won't do any work. It's like, that will come across. And, businesses that have had that kind of ethos to date, that have been thrust into the situation now where everybody is working from home, whether they like it or not, not only are they going to have a problem from a technical infrastructure perspective in terms of actually getting these people up and running and productive from home, but I also think from a mindset perspective as well, because, a lot of people haven't had that responsibility or that autonomy, that kind of level of flexibility and freedom in the past. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people probably will see it like a little bit like a holiday, like they're not sort of being spied upon anymore. So I think there's going to be that kind of transition period as well for businesses to get it right. But no, it is going to be very interesting, I think, to see where we land off the back of this.
Yeah, and there's ways and means of checking that someone is actually doing work, because without being too draconian, we have a stand-up every morning where we say, yesterday I did this and today I'm going to work on this. And you have to have something to say. So if you've been sat around all day doing nothing, it's going to show.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. Yeah, totally agree. I mean, you mentioned there a minute ago that's sort of a couple of initiatives, and just to kind of circle back to the women in technology discussion. What initiatives are you aware of in the marketplace for anything you could recommend for females that are interested in getting into the world of technology? Are there any initiatives out there you would champion?
Yeah, so definitely the Sky Get Into Tech. That was the one that got me in. I believe there's other companies that have done similar. I think the BBC does one. I'm not too sure, but I know that there's quite a few different companies now that are trying to get more women into tech. What I found really, really useful was the meetups. So different meetup groups. There's women in technology groups, ladies who code. Then there's specifically ones for, so I think there's a Python ladies world, Pythonistas. There's some JavaScript ones. There's loads of different. If you go on the Meetup website or the Meetup app and look for anything related to coding and women, loads of stuff will pop up. And there's literally, I mean, at the moment they're virtual events, but obviously, hopefully once this is over, there'll be more in-person events. And I found those are really good for networking. And that's where you find out about who's hiring, who's really keen on women in tech, because they target those meetings. So you find that there's lots and lots of good organizations that are really supporting women in tech and really looking for new talent and people who are keen to learn.
Yeah, it's interesting to say that. Have you found those remote networking events? Because it's similar in recruitment. I mean, I'm a massive believer of networking and face-to-face interaction with people. I think it's kind of the best way to truly build relationships. And prior to this, obviously we'd be doing a lot of face-to-face networking. But how are the remote networking events panning out for you?
So I think people are still finding their feet a little bit. So some of them have just been much more just a presentation, which is great because it's actually useful because you learn something. But as far as the networking goes, that's a very hard thing to replicate online, because normally you have like little groups breaking off and things. So there's one good one that I've done, I think, which was Women Tech Club, I think it's called. And they've been doing these positivity lunches on a Thursday. And what she does is they'll have a little talk at the beginning that everyone's involved in, and it's on Zoom. And then she sort of splits the group into smaller groups, and she takes you off into like a side room on Zoom. And then what she's been doing is just kind of like basically asking different people questions and then trying to get everyone to chat and getting everyone involved. And that's worked pretty well. I think everyone's still a bit awkward, but people are getting better at it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess it's a new concept, isn't it? Like anything, it will evolve over time. But yeah, that going back to your point earlier, I guess there's certain things that are always going to be quite difficult to replicate, without physically being in the same room and having that kind of human contact. But it's amazing how technology is really enabling us to, not have this fundamental breakdown in productivity and still find a way to communicate. So
we are very, very lucky that we have all this technology now, because if this had happened, say 10 years ago, we wouldn't be in this position at all. So technology is where it's at, and I think that's the industry to be in now.
Yeah,
we're making all this possible.
Totally agree. Well, on that note, so Joe, it's been amazing having you. Thank you very much for your time. Some really interesting perspectives there, and very, very grateful for you coming on and sharing those. So I guess all that remains to be seen is thank you for your time, and hope you have a great rest of the day and stay safe. And look forward to catching up with you in the not too distant future.
Thanks very much.
All right, bye for now.
Speak to you soon. Bye.